A bobcat was caught on camera the very moment it discovered a baby in the wreck of a horrific accident on a snowy American highway. What happened next shocked everyone beyond belief. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single astonishing detail of this truly incredible event. An isolated winter's night in the Montana backcountry. Somewhere along a lonely highway winding between the city of Billings and a tiny mountain hamlet called Silver Creek, the darkness was deep and foreboding. Snow-laden pine forests and jagged foothills framed the treacherous road. Andrea Carter gripped the steering wheel of her rugged SUV, fighting to see the narrow serpentine route through the swirling snowstorm. Her husband, Nick Carter, dozed in the passenger seat, while in the back, their 6-month-old son, Max, slept snugly in his car seat. "We're less than an hour away," Andrea thought, squinting at the distant glow of roadside reflectors. They were on their way to visit Nick's elderly mother in Silver Creek so she could finally meet her long-awaited grandson. She was too frail to travel. Despite warnings of a fierce blizzard, the young family had decided to brave the weather. The silhouettes of towering pines raced past the car windows, and occasional bursts of radio static replaced any clear music or talk. Suddenly, in the glare of the headlights, a dark shape darted across the road. Andrea gasped, slamming on the brakes. Nick jerked awake from the jolt, gripping the dashboard. "What is it?" he asked, still groggy. "I think a bobcat just ran across the highway," Andrea whispered, her eyes still fixed on the roadside. In the fleeting moment, she was certain she'd seen a small, powerful form slip among the low brush, disappearing into the swirling snow. "We haven't seen bobcats up close in ages," Nick murmured, shaking his head. "Maybe you imagined it." But Andrea couldn't shake the sight of those shining eyes, which reflected the eerie moonlight. As she tried to move the SUV forward, something felt wrong. The steering went slack and the tires lost traction on the ice-coated asphalt. "Something's off," Andrea said, alarmed. Nick frowned. "Could we have damaged something when you hit the brakes so hard? We might need to pull over." But there was no time. The SUV began to fishtail on a slick curve, drifting uncontrollably toward the shoulder. Andrea fought the wheel, but it was useless. "Hold on!" she screamed as the vehicle broke through a guardrail and tumbled down the steep embankment. Metal screeched against rock and ice, glass shattered, and terrified cries filled the air. Then there was only silence. The SUV finally landed on its side, wedged in the snow and pine undergrowth. Nick and Andrea were both unconscious. The only sound was the faint cry of baby Max, warm but heartbreakingly fragile beneath the freezing sky. "Oh!" A watchful figure in the shadows. Not far away, among snow-draped pines and rocky outcrops, a bobcat. Yes, the same elusive feline that had flashed in Andrea's headlights, cautiously crept closer to the wreck. Typically, wild cats avoid the crash of metal and the smell of humans. Yet this bobcat advanced, guided by the desperate wail of the infant, the scent of blood and leaking fuel. Its wide, alert eyes glimmered with an uncanny awareness. Circling the mangled vehicle, the bobcat sniffed at the wheels and detected a helpless movement. The baby, thrown from his seat, still swaddled in a blanket. The cat paused, muzzle close to the child. In the wild, a bobcat is a solitary hunter, rarely approaching people. But in that moment, some ancient protective instinct seemed to stir, greater than fear. Instead of fleeing, the bobcat slipped through the shattered window, carefully approaching the baby in the frigid interior. The temperature plummeted as snow began to bury the overturned SUV. The baby let out a louder sob, and the bobcat, astonishingly, settled beside him, curling its thick furred tail around the tiny body to keep him warm. The storm raged outside, erasing any sign of the accident, but the bobcat never moved from its spot. When Max whimpered, the big cat produced a soft rumbling sound, almost like a calming purr. Hours passed in the freezing darkness, yet the warmth of that wild creature's body created a life-saving shelter for the child. Dawn and a tracker's discovery. At first light, a lumber truck rumbled cautiously along the highway. At the wheel was Richard Rick Johnson, an old hand with 2 decades of driving under his belt. His younger brother Jake, also a driver, dozed in the passenger seat. "Hey, Jake," Rick muttered, tapping the brakes. "Look up there. Something's off. That guardrail's busted." Jake instantly perked up, checking his phone for a signal. "Pull over and turn on your hazard lights," he said. They stepped out of the cab, Rick shining a powerful flashlight down the snowy slope. "There's definitely a vehicle down there," he noted. Carefully, they clambered down, branches snapping underfoot. Through the winter stillness, only the crunch of snow was audible. When Rick finally reached the overturned SUV, he aimed his flashlight inside and froze. "Jake," he whispered, "come look at this. There's a Bobcat right next to a baby seat." Indeed, the wildcat, with its tufted ears and muscular build, was perched protectively by a peacefully slumbering infant. "What is happening?" Jake muttered, stunned. "Looks like it's guarding him," Rick answered, scanning the area for the drivers. "We gotta call 911 right now." Rick's beam of light found Andrea and Nick both unconscious but breathing. "I think they're alive," Rick exhaled in relief. "Hope the rescue team gets here fast." They built a small fire nearby to keep warm and guide rescuers. Throughout it all, the Bobcat stayed in the SUV. It let out a low growl when Jake moved too close, but showed no outright aggression. The brothers got the sense this mysterious creature was standing watch over the child. Rescue and disbelief. The emergency responders arrived within the hour. 2 ambulances and a specialized rescue vehicle. Leading the team was seasoned Commander Lieutenant Paul Simmons, who had seen every kind of wreck imaginable over 20 years. When he heard that a wild bobcat was guarding a baby, he was skeptical. "A bobcat protecting a human infant. You guys sure you haven't been drinking to keep warm?" he joked. But once he saw it with his own eyes, his doubts vanished. The cat was genuinely poised beside the car seat, exuding a strange calm. "I've never seen anything like this," Simmons whispered to Dr. Helen Parker, a veterinarian attached to the rescue team. "Maybe it lost kittens of its own," Parker speculated. "Or we're seeing something beyond normal explanation." "What's the plan now?" asked a paramedic, glancing at a stretcher. "First, we ensure everyone's safe," Simmons said. The crew gingerly extracted Nick and Andrea, who were alive but unresponsive, and loaded them onto stretchers. Then came the hardest part, retrieving baby Max. One rescuer suggested a tranquilizer. "I can dart the Bobcat and take the baby," he offered. But Rick Johnson objected. "Hold up. This cat saved the kid's life most likely. Doesn't seem right to shoot it with a tranquilizer." Dr. Parker hesitated. "That's a wild animal. Its behavior might change in a flash." Unexpectedly, Darcy Robinson, a paramedic originally from a rural Midwest area, spoke up. "I have some experience dealing with wild animals. Let me try without sedation." Lieutenant Simmons weighed the risks, then nodded. "Go ahead, but stay cautious." Darcy approached the wreck with measured steps, extending her hand near the broken window. The Bobcat tensed, emitting a low, warning snarl, but didn't pounce. "Easy, sweet baby," Darcy murmured softly, addressing the infant more than the cat, letting the Bobcat sense she meant no harm. Dr. Parker stood ready with the syringe, but Darcy inched closer. The Bobcat gave a short hiss, but stayed put. Darcy paused, letting the cat sniff her hand. Finally, the Bobcat's eyes half closed, as if conceding. Darcy gently lifted Max into her arms, stepping back slowly from the wreck. In one swift movement, the Bobcat bounded out through the broken frame. It didn't lunge or try to reclaim the baby. Instead, it paused a few steps away, still watching every motion the rescuers made. Medics rushed to examine little Max. Apart from mild hypothermia and a few scrapes, he seemed miraculously uninjured. Another responder said in awe, "Without that cat's body heat, the baby probably wouldn't have survived." Before long, all the victims were on their way to a hospital in Billings. Andrea and Nick had severe injuries, broken bones, internal bruising, and long recovery ahead. But Max was mostly unharmed. Word spread like wildfire. A Bobcat had saved an infant's life in a freezing wilderness. "I've been practicing pediatric medicine for decades," said Dr. Mitchell Brown, one of the hospital's senior doctors, speaking with reporters. This defies everything we know about Bobcat's behavior. Darcy Robinson, who had carried Max out of the SUV, couldn't stop replaying that moment in her mind. She felt an unexplainable pull to the scene, as if she'd been meant to be there. Stories exist of children supposedly raised by wolves or bears, but for it to happen here, in real life, was that really an ordinary bobcat? She wondered, researching the cat's habits during her off hours. A mysterious vigil. 3 days later, late at night, a nurse from the ICU came rushing in. Darcy, somebody saw a bobcat slinking around the hospital courtyard. At first, people assumed it was just a rumor, but security footage confirmed a shadowy feline figure perched by the fence, directly beneath the windows of the pediatric ward where Max was staying. Incredible, Darcy thought. It's almost like the cat is still watching over him. To test her theory, she placed Max's small blanket on a windowsill. That night, the camera recorded the bobcat approaching the wall, sniffing the air, staring upward toward the child's room. There was no hostility, just silent concern. Even as doctors and administrators debated what to do, some insisted a wild predator near the hospital was a liability. Andrea and Nick hovered between hope and despair. Nick slowly regained consciousness, his voice weak, and learned that a bobcat had saved his son. "What kind of miracle?" he whispered tearfully. Darcy patted his arm. "Max is safe. Focus on healing yourself so you can both be there when Andrea recovers." When Andrea finally woke, she cradled Max and wept with gratitude. "They told me about a bobcat," she said. "I remember dreaming of a warm, furry creature holding us through the cold night." She and Nick wanted answers, but no one had a purely scientific explanation. They knew only that without the cat's intervention, their son might not have made it. As the nights passed, the bobcat continued to show up outside the hospital fence. Most of the staff hesitated to harm or capture it, given the remarkable events, and Darcy persuaded the hospital to wait a little longer. A family's new chapter. Nick healed well enough to stand, and Andrea soon left the ICU. Max became a tiny celebrity, the baby saved by the bobcat. Finally, the couple decided that once discharged, they would move to Silver Creek to be near Nick's mother and embrace a more peaceful life in the countryside. After experiencing how abruptly everything can change, they wanted to cherish every moment together. Late one evening, Darcy strolled by the hospital grounds and saw the bobcat silhouetted in the moonlight. Gently, she said, "You came to check on the baby, didn't you?" The animal didn't flee, merely flicked its ears as if acknowledging her words. Darcy laid Max's blanket near the fence. The cat sniffed it, seeming satisfied, then padded off into the darkness. When Andrea and Nick were finally discharged, they left with Max for Silver Creek, thankful to be alive. Locals sometimes reported glimpses of a bobcat prowling the forest edges or perched on rocky ledges, unafraid of passing humans. It was as though that wild hunter had left a piece of its own heart behind with the family it had rescued. Bah! An astonishing, true story of nature's grandeur. A bobcat became the guardian of a human child on a perilous winter's night. To witness such an event is to be reminded of the profound mysteries hidden in the natural world, moments when animal instinct transcends our expectations. If this story moved you, be sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay informed about other incredible tales of wildlife, natural wonders, and the extraordinary bonds that can form between people and the creatures sharing our planet. We post new episodes daily, highlighting heartfelt acts that reshape our understanding of life on Earth. Thanks for reading this inspiring account to the end. If you'd like to explore more uplifting rescues, natural enigmas, and true-life marvels involving humans and animals, check out our special playlist on the left. There, you'll find the most remarkable stories that kindle faith in kindness and remind us to protect the world we all call home. Dive in and discover life's wonders today.